Hey, what is going on, guys? In this video today, we're going to be going over a couple mistakes which you may be making in Fortnite. These are mistakes that I've seen commonly made by players of pretty much every skill level, and maybe most importantly, these are tips that don't really require much mechanical skill. They're all tips that you can listen to, understand, and then hopefully implement into your own game to become a better overall Fortnite player. It should be a pretty interesting and helpful video, so without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so the first mistake we're going to be going over in this video today is how certain players can misuse their inventory. Now, this is a tip I've touched on a little before on my channel, especially in early game situations, but there's so much more to it than just that. In case you're new to the channel or just never heard me mention it before, I'll just briefly go over the early game version of this mistake. Basically, players will fail to capitalize on loot advantages that they get at the very beginning of a game. Right when players first touch the ground in the beginning of a Fortnite game, that's the only time where everybody's loot is totally even. Therefore, if you're lucky enough to get really good loot right off the rip, you're almost guaranteed to have a significant advantage over every other player around you. Now, obviously, even if you play this perfectly, there are still going to be times where you get absolutely RNG. You know, you get a blue pump and minis from the lower level of the first building you land in, but then you rush the guy on the floor above you who just so happened to find a gold pump and 2 big shields. It's gonna happen and it'll probably make you very, very angry, but that doesn't take away from the fact that you made the right play. If you don't play aggressive when you have that early game loot advantage, all you're doing is giving the people around you more time to loot and catch up to you. But like I said, misusing your inventory is a mistake that isn't just restricted to the beginning of Fortnite matches. Here's a great example of what I mean by this. Let's say you're a player who somehow has managed to acquire a full stack of 10 minis in your inventory. That may not seem like a super big advantage, but if you know how to use them correctly, it most certainly is. Those minis basically enable you to trade chip damage with enemies with almost no consequences as long as you don't get absolutely beamed. You can take 1 to 2 shots from almost any AR in the game, and still, because of those 10 minis, keep your health at right about 150. And when you consider the fact that it's very unlikely that any enemy will have as much healing as you, it makes it so that whatever chip damage you end up dealing will hurt them so much more. However, if you have 10 minis and just turn every fight you encounter into a 50-50 pump shotgun fight, those minis really aren't going to be able to help you because those fights start and end so quickly. They most certainly won't prevent you from getting one pumped, and even if you do win the fight but end up taking a ton of damage, you may be in a situation where you have something like 30 green health and minis can't help you with that. But this tip also isn't limited to just the type/amount of healing you have. The same scenario can be applied to the strengths and weaknesses of the weapons in your inventory as well. Let's say your inventory after leaving your starting town consists of something like a gold scar, green tack shotgun, gray SMG, and 2 healing spots. Pretty realistic inventory there. You are lucky enough to find what's probably the best AR in the entire game, but your shotgun and SMG are both fairly weak. Because of this, it only makes sense for you to try as hard as possible to ensure that you put yourself in fights where you can primarily use your AR, and also avoid any kind of close range situation. And you would obviously want to do pretty much the exact opposite if you had, say, a green AR but a purple pump and a blue SMG. This is actually something that I myself struggle with. I'll try really hard to turn everything into a super close range shotgun fight, even if I have a weak close range loadout and a strong long range loadout. And a lot of the time, that unfortunately ends with me getting one pumped. Moving on, the next mistake that I see in players of legitimately all skill levels is that they don't take advantage of editing in fights, and that is especially the case in build fights. If you watch a lot of my videos, you've probably heard me say the following saying about 1,000,000 times by now. The skill level of the average Fortnite player has risen significantly in just the last 2 to 3 seasons. And the area that the average player has improved in the most is building. Just doing fast 90s and being able to cone and box someone is no longer enough to be a top tier builder in Fortnite. Because of that, you're seeing this sort of change in the building skill gap, where to be a true top tier builder, you also need to be really good at editing. Building has kind of changed from just getting high ground and waiting for your opponent to make a mistake while pushing you, to building over your opponent, but now you're the one who tries to make the aggressive play by editing down on them and surprising them. Now, don't get me wrong here, you could definitely be a pretty darn good Fortnite player without making any kind of edit plays. But unless you're blessed with something like otherworldly aim, IQ, or reaction time, you probably won't ever become a truly great Fortnite player without having editing in your repertoire. And I think that a lot of people are still stuck in the old mindset from around season 3 to 5, where editing was still somewhat of a gimmicky feature that only the best players in the world used when they were trying to show off. Now, to be fair, that was kind of the case on console because at the time editing didn't work consistently, but that's luckily been fixed for a few months now. The good news for you guys who haven't incorporated editing into your game yet is that it's more like learning how to build than learning how to aim. And what I basically mean by that is you don't really need any kind of natural talent to become at least pretty good at it. It just comes down to learning the important edits and improving your speed in something like an editing course, and then, most importantly, learning how to apply the edits you've learned into actual in-game scenarios. And it's important to remember here that to be effective with editing, you don't need to be able to edit at the speed of light or pull off some of the crazy edit plays that guys like Symphony and Mongrel are able to do. Also, make sure that you aren't afraid to make mistakes when trying to make edit plays in-game. It may get you killed a few times early on, especially when you're just learning them, but that's really the only way you're going to truly learn how to do it. Practicing in creative mode or playground is great, but there's no substitution for real in-game situations. The next thing we're going to cover is the power of playing passive and avoiding bad fights, and how a lot of players fail to truly take advantage of this. And when I say play passive, I'm sure a lot of people will initially think of turtling. That's definitely a part of playing passive, but that also isn't the only thing it is. But speaking of turtling, there's a reason why you see it all the time at the highest competitive level of play in Fortnite. When you're turtled inside of a 1x1, you're temporarily safe from every single form of damage in the game, except for stink bombs and I guess also planes ramming through you. Plus, anybody who ends up aggressively pushing your 1x1 is putting themselves at a much higher risk than you. He's going to be making a ton of noise, not going to be watching his back, and will generally be way more susceptible to being third-partied by an outside team. And speaking of third-partying, one of the best ways to handle inevitable situations where you're going to get stuck in an engagement between multiple teams is turtling up and just letting everybody else fight and weaken each other around you. But as I said, turtling definitely isn't the only way to avoid taking bad fights in Fortnite. In my last video, I talked about how the skill of rotating in Fortnite is totally different now than it was even just a few months ago. With all the crazy mobility in the game now, rotating is so much faster and easier than ever before. This is something that you should try to take advantage of as much as humanly possible. There's really no reason now, especially if you're mainly playing for the win, to get caught in a fight and trapped as the storm is closing in on you. Even now that rotations are generally pretty unpredictable with all the mobility in the game, a lot of really good players will still use the storm as a way to locate, push, and pick off unsuspecting players. So you should be trying to take advantage of mobility as much as possible to rotate early and safely. This is obviously even more important at the end of games when the circle begins to get smaller and smaller. I understand that a lot of people want to play really aggressive and push pretty much every single fight they see, but you can have a super aggressive playstyle while still avoiding bad fights. But trust me, no matter how smart you play, there will always be times where you're stuck in a sticky situation. And when that happens, it's a good idea to simply turtle up, compose yourself, become aware of your surroundings, and then figure out what to do from there. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you watched the entire thing, be sure to let me know with a comment down in the comment section below. This video was mainly about mistakes and improving as a Fortnite player, so I want to know, what do you guys think is the most common mistake you make in Fortnite? I'm really interested to see what you guys have to say, so be sure to leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications, do whatever the heck you want, and I will catch you guys next time.